Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Comics podcast. We're doing episode 4 here. As you can probably see, a couple things are different today. First things first, we're recording in a different location, namely my crib, and this, obviously we can see that Ray's not around. Ray's been under the weather the last couple days, so I figured I'd do an episode. Well, I basically almost on my own, not quite. I'll get to that in a second. But feel better, Ray. So I'm Charles, and I'm here to welcome you, like I said, to every episode 4 of Everything Comics. But as I said, I am not completely alone. Joining us via the telephone, we have, I don't know for any of those who remember a couple episodes back on the SoundCloud podcast, we had our contest winner, Mr. David Rosenthal, and he has been kind enough to join us again. How's it going, Dave?
Doing good, all the way from the far, far away land of South Carolina.
No, I hear you on that. So, okay, before we begin, I kind of do want to ask you, what's the comic scene like down there?
It's good. I mean, there's 3 local shops around me.
Mm-hmm.
There's one in North Myrtle Beach called Player's Choice. There's another one in Surfside that I'm currently blanking on the name of it. And then there's, I can't think of the name of it for some reason. And then there's a shop I go to in Conway, South Carolina called Tower Comics.
Okay, so was it?
It's not too bad.
Gotcha. They're nice stores. They got everything you need and everything?
Yeah. The store up in North Myrtle Beach, Player's Choice, you name it, if they ain't got it, then there's a major malfunction. So,
Gotcha.
And then the shop I go to, Power Comics, is got a good selection of not only comics, but manga and figures and a whole bunch of stuff.
Right, of course. Got to have the manga these days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
it's not as good as the comic. It's not as good as the comic scene in New York, but we survive.
Okay, no, I hear you. As a matter of fact, if I recall right, you guys did a little thing called XCon down there, right?
Yeah, we did. We had year 10 last year, and probably going to take a year or so off.
Gotcha. I hear you. Well, when you guys come back strong, let us know because we definitely love to give you some airtime if anything. Maybe even come down and do an episode down there.
Would love it, Charles. Would absolutely love it.
Fantastic. Okay, so
but after 10 years, we need to de-stress.
No, I hear you. Do one more thing. How did you guys get started with XCon?
It was a dare.
A dare?
Yeah, somebody dared. The original 2 gentlemen that started it, Robin and Steve, were pretty much dared, saying you can't put a con on in Myrtle Beach. It'll never go anywhere. Nobody will ever show up. Huh. So they dared us to do it, and we put the first con on literally in. Oh God, I want to say we put the first show on in 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah, we put the first show on in October. Technically, 10 years ago, 10 years ago in October. Okay. Was the very first show, and like I said, it was on. It pretty much was just on a dare. Never dare us that we can't do something.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Sometimes dares work out in ways that one will never expect.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So I do want to touch up on a few items of current or more or less current news before we start going into the topic of this episode. I guess the first thing, I don't know if you've heard or not yet, but actually this just broke today. Marvel Legacy 1 is coming out this week, and they just revealed the big spoiler. Classic Wolverine is coming back.
As in Classic Wolverine, as in the brown costume, or as in just a really young Logan?
As in just the classic character. Basically, he's been dead the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Right, but no, he's coming back.
Wait, let me look shocked. Marvel's going to bring a dead character back.
I know, right? I know. Imagine that. Who'd ever think that Marvel would ever think to do anything like that? No, not Marvel.
No, never.
But, I mean, they haven't said much details about it. My guess is you probably got to pick up the book, and maybe who knows how many books after that to figure out the whys. But yeah, so one thing's going to be weird about it is you figure you've got now Old Man Logan's got his own book basically, and it's been doing pretty well. You've got X-23 who stepped up into the role of Wolverine.
Right.
So I kind of wonder, are you going to have 3 Wolverine people running around?
How many Jean Greys are there going to be running around?
And that actually good point, touche, good point, because that actually leads to the next one. Speaking of characters about to come back, this one's a little older, but at least a little older news. But as of December, we will be seeing Marvel Legacy Resurrection of Phoenix Resurrection. It'll be the return of Jean Grey.
Yeah. So I mean, because we currently have the young Jean Grey from the X-Men, technically the first group of X-Men students that came forward in time. Yep,
the original 5.
Right. So you got Jean Grey running around as a young kid, and now you're going to have old, I guess modern-day Jean Grey?
Yeah. Basically, this Jean Grey, she's been on the shelf, actually, in fairness to Marvel. She's been on the shelf mostly since 2001.
Right.
So they've actually kept her off for a long time. And one thing that's interesting, because I don't know if this will end up tying into a resurrection or not, but in the Young Jean Grey solo book that they've been having, which actually, I have to say, in my opinion, has been very underrated.
Right.
In the last issue, I believe in issue 5, at the end of it, so Jean's basically, the whole premise of the book is that young Jean has found clues that the Phoenix may be coming back. And
oh, goody.
Yeah, so, she now figures she has to get herself ready in a hurry because, adult Jean Grey had more than her hands full with the Phoenix. So one can only imagine what a teenage Jean Grey would be feeling with that. So
that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, so she's been training, but along the way she stops in with Doctor Strange in issue 5 because she's been hearing voices in her head, and it turns out there's one voice in her head will not go away, and at the end of the issue we see that the voice that won't go away is a disembodied adult Jean Grey. So, we don't. As of right now, we don't know if that will tie in. My guess is it's got to. Otherwise, what's the point, right?
Dude, I'm telling you, Jean Grey has got nothing on Sybil.
She's got nothing on who?
Sybil. She got more personalities than a man can shake a stick at.
Yeah. Oh, I was thinking, maybe she's close to Legion in that department, but...
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah. So, and the last bit is, what was it? For Superman... I don't know if you heard or not, but in the latest issue of Action Comics, the identity of the mysterious Mr. Oz has been revealed, and it is Jor-El.
As in he's alive?
As in yes, Superman's dad is supposedly alive.
Well, there's a monkey wrench.
Yeah, not only that, but he's apparently not necessarily the nicest of guys. Yeah, because under the Mr. Oz is already basically he's kidnapped Doomsday and Tim Drake among others.
That actually that actually explains the back issue of one of the comics I just read had a thing on it that said find out who Mr. Oz is. So that actually because I was kind of curious as to what that meant.
Right. Well, now you know. Spoiler alert.
Oh, I'm good. I don't read Action Comics, so I'm good.
Right. Okay. No, I gotcha. So one thing I'm going to do before one last thing I'll do before we jump into the main point is I'm going to just show off some Fourth World Comics picks of the week. Fourth World. So we do that every week. We plug our local store, which is Fourth World Comics. Basically, they're our store where it's like at least on the island where whatever you want you find there. And
God, I doubt the shop that I even went to on Long Island still exists anymore.
What store was that?
Dude, I don't remember the name of it. I know where it was, but I don't remember what it was called.
Where was it?
Patchogue. It was on Main Street by, I don't even know if the store's even there anymore, where Sweeties used to be.
Okay, you know what? I can tell you, I don't think so. They've actually, Patchogue's, they've done so much with Patchogue in recent years that, like, it's almost unrecognizable. They've actually cleaned it up.
I said, I didn't think it was still going to be there.
Right. I mean, it's funny. There's a lot of stores that are still around, believe it or not. Like Long Island Comics is still around.
Wow.
Yeah, they've moved a couple times, but yeah, they're still around.
Oh, I'm sure.
Bailey's Comics is still around.
Okay.
Collector's Kingdom was around, but unfortunately they had a lot of tragedy in a very short period of time.
Okay.
Yeah, long story short, in December the store burned down.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, so the owner, Mike Radley, had set up a temporary shop, but unfortunately, I guess with everything going on in his life, and then with the store burning down, it got too much, and he died a couple months later.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, and it's a shame because I mean, I gotta say, he was one of the good guys. You know, he was one of those guys. You know, he always appreciated when you went in there. If you went in there, he would. He like a lot of times, especially if you spent like over $20, he'd give you books for free to check out if he liked them.
Nice.
So he's still missed to this day, but so R.I.P. Mike Radley. Hope you got your piece. But moving on to current stuff. So I said, I got a fourth world stuff here. I'll make this brief, and I will show off. You'll see this when you actually see the video. But first thing I got, now I should mention everything's recorded backwards. I basically had to do that because I'm the only one here kind of, doing this. So we've got Wonder Woman number 30 here. And this is basically the conclusion of a 5-part story that began in 26. And I will say, I do think Wonder Woman's been doing very well, in my opinion. Greg Rucka took it, and he read it to some great places. So, I think James Robinson is going to take over pretty soon. But, Wonder Woman has maintained its quality, so good for them. And
that and the fact that the Gal Gadot movie was phenomenal really upped her value.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was so relieved when that came out and that turned out to be as awesome as it was.
I will freely admit it, and I will put my credit on the line. I had yet to see it.
You had yet to what?
I've yet to see the movie.
Oh, okay.
So I have every intention of going out to buying it sometime soon to watch it, but I have yet to see that movie.
Okay, so long story short,
which has gotten me in a lot of trouble with my friends.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, there's a couple month stretch that I missed a couple of movies, so I basically from Doctor Strange through Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. There's like all the movies in that stretch I have not seen, so.
Well, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I didn't see it until that came out on Blu-ray.
Right. Well,
so I'm with you on that. Doctor Strange I did see in the movies, but the rest of them, no, I haven't seen yet.
Right. Well, of course, the other one was Logan, which I got to make time for that. That's my bad. I know.
Which I haven't seen that yet, and I'm dying to see it. I really need to go buy it.
Everyone I know that's into comic book movies that's seen that has said it's awesome.
Yeah, that's what, like I said, I've heard the same thing.
Right. So I got 2 more books I want to show off here. We've got Captain Phasma issue 2. Now you picked these up, right? Issue 1 at least, right?
I just picked up issue 1, issue 2 the other day.
Okay. Did you get a chance to read them yet?
I haven't had a chance to read them yet. I kind of fell out of comics for a little while.
Okay.
When the shop I was originally going to closed down. So I kind of fell out for a little while, and I'm just now getting back into it.
Right.
And one of the main titles I pick up all the time was Star Wars.
Okay.
So I just picked up Phasma 1 and 2 because number 1 it ties into The Last Jedi.
Right, of course.
I want to see more about Phasma because God knows we didn't get a lot of her in the book.
That is true. Very, very true. I mean, you would have thought she would have played a bigger role, but for whatever reason, powers that be kind of left her off. So,
Yeah.
well, one thing I will say, I mean, they do make up for that in these books in a very big way.
That's what I was told when I picked them up. That I'd be very happy with them.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely, for those who read the book, she definitely does do a good job of regaining some of the cred that she might have lost.
Good.
Right, so there's that, and then the last book I'm going to show off here, because it's going to segue into our next segment. I've got issue number 139 of Invincible. And this is part 7 of 12 of The End of All Things, which is basically going to conclude the series.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely, it's a book I've been very interested in over the years. I have the first couple trade paperbacks, and I guess that actually kind of segues in me into our next segment, which I believe we discussed earlier. Basically, we're doing part 2 of our Intro to Comics series, which basically what we were doing is we talk about basically favorite series and what would be good starting points for new readers. So I believe you actually did some homework on it. Would you like to pick our first series?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so
probably the first series I would go with, and it's not running current anymore. It was a 12-issue series it was put out by DC Comics.
Okay.
And it was called Future Quest.
Future Quest, okay.
Now, if you're as old as you and I are, this is a comic that basically took all the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons. You're looking at Space Ghost. You're looking at the Herculoid. You're looking at Johnny Quest. You're looking at the Galaxy Trio. You're looking at Frankenstein Jr.
Wow.
Birdman. And just so on and so on and so on. And it throws them all into a 12-issue story that, in my opinion, was absolutely incredible.
Huh.
It delved a little bit back into the backstory of how Space Ghost became what is Space Ghost.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, originally, I mean, the easiest way to explain it, and not to give away a ton of spoilers for people that haven't read it,
right,
is originally Space Ghost was part of what could be considered a Green Lantern Corps.
Okay.
There were, hundreds of thousands of these guys.
Huh.
Yeah, that were, specifically picked to protect certain sectors, i.e., like the Green Lantern Corps.
Right.
But, something big bad happened that wiped them all out. And that's where Future Quest picks up. And now they all have to band together to try and stop this thing from literally wiping out existence.
Okay, so maybe in effect, Space Ghost has become like Kyle Rayner.
Kind of.
Okay.
Because Space Ghost kind of vanishes after the first issue for a little while because of what happens.
Okay.
And everybody else is trying to figure out what in God's name, is going on, because this entity ends up on Earth where, current Johnny Quest, currently where Johnny Quest resides.
Okay.
So, because, they have Johnny Quest, Young Frankenstein, and Birdman, all currently, reside on Earth.
Right.
And then this thing shows up on Earth, and then that brings in the rest of the rigmarole. The Herculoids end up on Earth. Space Ghost ends up on Earth. The Galaxy Trio ends up on Earth.
Okay. Huh.
There's another group from Hanna-Barbera cartoon that I cannot remember their actual name of them. But they were like a rock band. One of them was Coil Man, Hydro Man, stuff like that, and Multiple Man.
Okay.
But they all show up on Earth. And, it was a very well-done story. So, because one of the end panels, and I can't remember the issue number exactly off the top of my head, when Space Ghost finally shows up,
yeah,
he's literally sitting there pointing his little blaster bracelets that he wears on his arm.
Okay.
At Johnny Quest and Haji about to blow them to Kingdom Come, because he ain't got a clue what's going on.
Gotcha.
And you're literally like, now I have to wait 30 days for the next issue.
Now.
So, but I mean, that was it was a 12-issue arc,
Right.
which you can still find at stores.
Okay.
But was very, very, to me, just very well done.
Okay, now here's a
So,
question.
especially,
Here's a quick
Say again?
question. Was it meant to be 12 issues, or did they cancel it early?
No, it was meant to be 12 issues. It was only meant to be a 12-issue arc.
Okay.
That was it. It was meant to be 12 issues. Now, will they do something with it again? Anything is possible, because right now DC put out, because I just picked up issue 1 and 2, they put out Future Quest Presents Space Ghost.
Okay.
And it literally picks up right where the Future Quest ended.
Okay.
So it's basically, a continuation. Hey, this, you found out about all these characters, this is what happened, and now this is their continuing story.
Gotcha.
So, because, Space Ghost goes back and meets up with the Herculoids because he needs to get a couple of things. And, they're like, hopefully we're meeting under better circumstances than the last time we saw each other, which was, what happened in the Future Quest story.
Okay.
So it's to me, very well done. And I'm not, and I'm not a mainstream, reader. I'm not a big Marvel DC reader.
Right.
Anymore. But
Right.
I like what they did with this Future Quest line. I'm really enjoying it. It's part nostalgia for me because this is stuff I used to watch as a kid on Saturday. But it's a very well written and very well illustrated story.
Okay.
And especially you get to find out a lot of the backstory on these people that you grew up reading watching as kids.
Right.
And it's a little bit more, it's a little bit more of an adult story.
Right, of course.
So, but, you get to learn more about, where Space Ghost came from. Why the Herculoids, why the Herculoids the way they are. Why are they on this planet basically living like in a, primitive.
Right.
It's really well written and really well done.
Now, here's a question. Space Ghost, is he basically kind of sarcastic like when they did the Space Ghost show?
No, it's nothing like, Space Ghost Coast to Coast?
Yeah.
No. Space Ghost Coast to Coast was its own little thing. This is more kind of more like he was on the original cartoons when you and I were a kid.
Okay.
He's a lot more with a serious attitude, especially because of the simple fact he is, he's the last of his group.
Yeah, generally the last survivors tend to be less than chipper.
Yeah, so, if something happens to him and he dies, that's it.
Right.
There is no hope.
Right. Yeah, no, you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, and that's the thing. I love the fact that, the books that sometimes come up here aren't always just the traditional books, even though, like our first episode, last episode, we kind of did discuss mostly traditional books. So like today, I think we're going to discuss some less and that actually leads me to the book I'm about to bring up. You were speaking of nostalgia books. Ready for a nostalgia book?
Go for it.
Transformers.
Yeah.
So now, as anyone who's followed comics knows, Transformers has been through quite a few iterations over the years.
Oh, 1 or 2.
Yeah, we had Generation 1 for Marvel, Generation 2 for Marvel, you had Dreamwave, then you had Armada, then which led to Energon, however briefly, before they folded. And then IDW's taken over, and IDW's done, Lord knows, their own thing. So the question is, what Transformer story to pick out of all that? If you wanted someone to just boil down in essence and say what would be a good one, and what I end up picking, I don't know if you've read this one. You ever read The War Within?
Yes.
Okay, so awesome, glad to hear it. And basically, War Within, for the new readers, was written by Simon Furman and drawn by Don Figueroa, and it was 6 issues. Personally, I loved it. I felt like it's kind of an origin story. It's basically how how basically a library clerk ends up becoming Optimus Prime. And
yeah, how we go from being Orion Pax.
right, although I think in Dreamwave they called him Optometrix. Yeah, I know. I know different names, different continuities, head spins. I believe me, I know.
Yeah.
But what I love about the story. So it wasn't just Prime either. You got to see quite a few of their favorite Transformers in stories of yesteryear. You had Grimlock, and basically utter the line "Me Grimlock badass." So that was cool. Um, you had, of course, Megatron was doing this thing, and he fights Optimus. And yet, interestingly enough, in the end, they're not fighting to stop Megatron's plot. They're fighting to stop Starscream, who basically launches his first coup attempt against Megatron.
Cool.
So, yeah, in the end, the story, and in the end, you see Optimus Prime has to overcome his own doubts as to whether or not he can do this. His troops' lack of confidence in him in the beginning, especially after he decides that instead of fighting for Cybertron, he's going to evacuate it. So and it's funny because you see how the relationships were so different then. You're so used to Prowl, for example, kind of fawning over him, and here's Prowl openly disagreeing with him. You've got Grimlock's got his own little group, and it's not the Dinobots, it's Cup, Ironhide, and Wheeljack.
Yeah.
And and you see quite a few little things that I just thought were neat. You also see when Starscream takes over, he has his own little band of Decepticon psychopaths who are actually, shockingly enough, loyal to him, like most notably Motormaster. So, and to me, it just was a great coming of age story for the Transformers, and I enjoyed it. It was 6 issues. I mean, I don't know how easy the 6 issues are going to be to find for anyone in particular looking, but trade paperbacks are out there. I know IDW reprinted it. So,
yeah, I was going to say, I know for a fact The War Within is a trade paperback.
Right. I know Dreamwave put it out, and I believe IDW put it out as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you can find it, in my opinion, to any new readers that might be watching this, definitely The War Within, I feel like would be a great starting Transformer story. So okay.
Yeah, and with the one thing they've done with the Transformer story, and whether you go back to the original animated series,
right,
or you go back to the original, because the original animated series touched on it. Even if you go back to the original, G1 comic book version of Transformers, and even up to the run that Marvel did, the run that IDW is doing, and somebody did it before IDW.
Right. Dreamwave.
But Dreamwave, I wanted to call them DreamWorks, but I knew that wasn't right. But the one constant they've always kept is somewhere along the line they have always touched base on the fact that Optimus Prime never wanted to be the leader.
Yeah.
He never wanted to be the head Autobot. He never wanted, to fight. He never wanted to go to battle.
Right.
But when push came to shove, he would stand and fight for what he believed in.
Right.
So I mean that's the one thing I like in that, and I'm totally throwing out the Michael Bay verse with the movies because those are absolute garbage in my opinion.
Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. But that's the one constant they've always gone back to, is that he never wanted to be the leader.
Right.
But he also saw that nobody, but the people he saw that could potentially do it were too far in one direction.
Right.
Grimlock wanted to lay waste to everything.
Yeah.
Prowl was too angry and too pig-headed, to see the other side of the coin, that what the actions and consequences could bring.
Yeah.
And it always forced Prime's hand.
Right. No, that's very true.
And that's what I loved about what I still love about the Transformers series.
Right.
Granted, I'm not currently reading it because there's too many issues to read.
You know, I'd be honest. I had fallen off what they're currently doing. Just, I don't know. I guess to me, it's a little too. I guess how am I putting this? A little too alien right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I do understand what you're saying, and I do agree with it. But my one big pet peeve on comic books,
Yeah.
is I don't want, I want to start reading a story, but I don't want to have to read. And Transformers was prime example. More than meets the eye, robots in disguise.
Yep.
The one-off stories they had. Everything that tied this book to that book and that book to this book.
Oh my God, yes.
It gets to be ridiculously expensive.
Yep. And now it's like.
I mean, once again, a prime example. Look at the flippin' X-Men universe.
Yeah, I mean, I do think a lot of comics, when they've been around a long time, do have a tendency sometimes to fall into that trap. But I definitely think IDW's Transformers, to me, the big thing that holds me back is I do agree. I think there's too much going on, spread out too far. And yeah, you've got Optimus Prime, you've got the Lost Light, you've got Till All Are One, and all these one shots that they put out, and yeah, it's just I don't know. To me, go ahead.
And this is nothing new in the comic industry.
Yeah.
This started as way back as when you and I first started reading comics. Because originally you had X-Men and Uncanny X-Men.
Right.
And then the main five left, and they became X-Factor.
Yep.
And then Cable showed up, and he formed X-Force, and and it all went downhill from there.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because then X-Men universe got streamed back a couple years ago. Now it's kind of
and then it blew up again.
Right, it's starting to again. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that's getting us way off topic.
Right.
What you got next?
Let me ask you one question about Transformers before I ask you about your next book. Because I kind of toss this around a bit. If you were to pick one Transformer that you thought deserves a solo book, who would it be?
That deserves a solo book?
Yeah.
Ratchet.
Ratchet?
Mm-hmm.
Like the medic? Huh.
Yep.
Okay.
Now I'm saying that because keep in mind I've been an EMT and a medic for 20 plus years.
Okay.
It's always I would love to see the stories of the guy that's keeping everybody together. The story of everybody's going to battle, everybody's getting their proverbial metallic butt whipped.
Right.
But somebody's got to put them back together.
Yeah, it's funny because the early Marvel comics, Ratchet was a main focus of the books.
Yeah, in the original G1 comics, he was it.
Yeah.
Ratchet was their medic. Ratchet was their guy that put everything back together again.
Right, and not only that, but I believe for issues 5 through 8, he was the only living Autobot at one point.
Yeah, in the original arc, yeah, he was it.
Yeah, after Shockwave came in and blasted the hell out of everybody.
He went toe to toe with Megatron in the early,
issue 8.
Very early Marvel run.
Yeah, issue 8.
Yeah, he was it.
Yeah, he definitely, that's I will say I wasn't expecting that choice, but now you've explained it to me. Yeah, I mean, because if you would ask me an Autobot, I'll be honest, the first one that came to my mind was Grimlock. But yeah,
he'd be interesting too.
Right, but
if you go if you deal with the arc that the one we were just talking about, he's not as dumb as he was portrayed in the comic in the animated series.
That's true. That's very true. His tech specs always said he was smarter than average, and
Yeah.
And then when Simon Furman took him over, he actually started to show that, not by having him always display it, but you kind of got the feeling that, Grimlock wasn't completely dumb. I think his thing was just that his speech circuits were basic.
Right.
Like, he knew big words, he just couldn't say them.
Yep.
But,
Yep.
yeah, so on that note, what's your...
My favorite character in G.I. Joe was always Doc.
Yeah, the
I
medic.
always love the guy that puts everybody back together again.
Yeah. I suppose, did you ever read G.I. Joe 109?
Yep.
So you know what happens to Doc, right?
Yes, I cried.
Yeah, that was tough to take.
That was, but that's what was great about the comic book series. The comic book series, people died.
Right.
It wasn't like the animated series where they couldn't hit nothing.
Oh my God, guys ran through open fields like it was like a joke.
Yeah. So because still to this day, my favorite episode of the G.I. Joe animated cartoon series was the Weather Dominator, with them playing hockey with laser guns.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, God, so much from that cartoon series. I mean,
YouTube that one, listeners. You'll have a laugh.
You are very right, my friend. You are very right. Okay, so on that note, what's your next book up?
So my next one up is actually pretty interesting because it goes back to the whole, like I said, with my shop selling Japanese anime or manga.
Okay.
If I could pronounce my words correctly. It's put out by Titan Comics, and it's probably something I hold near and dear to my heart for an anime series. And it's Robotech. It's done by Brian Wood and Marco Turner.
Okay.
And yeah, it's kind of following the storyline that if you're familiar with Robotech, you'll understand. You'll understand what's going on.
Right.
But when at the end of issue 2, you finally get right into the comic, and we'll answer some of your questions.
Okay.
And the writer specifically says, we are definitely going to take some liberties. This is not going to be verbatim from what you remember from as a kid.
Okay.
And in the first issue alone, it's not.
Huh.
It's not. So, what the two main characters in the beginning of it, you have Roy Fokker and Rick Hunter.
Okay.
And Rick Hunter is Roy Fokker's younger brother.
Gotcha.
Now, in the original animated series, Roy Fokker was a really great guy.
Okay.
Always sticking up, always trying to defend his, defending Rick, his younger brother.
Right.
Well, in the comic series that is now currently out, Roy Fokker is a little bit of a dick.
Oh boy.
So, because he literally has his younger brother arrested.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, that's new.
Okay. So,
but it's interesting. The art, I like the artwork. I like the fact that they're still keeping true to the story that everybody grew up with. This giant spacecraft crash lands, on Earth, and they find robo technology, and then all of a sudden the Zentradi show up.
right.
So that's all still current, still true, but they're definitely making it a lot more grittier.
Okay.
They're definitely not taking the stance how they took with the original animated series, and that's what I find interesting. Now, are they going to, how far are they going to deviate?
Right.
That's still up in the air because we're only at issue 2.
Okay.
So that's still up in the air on how far they're going to deviate from the original animated series. But the little bit of deviation they've done so far, I find really, really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, no spoilers to anybody who doesn't know what's the Robotech universe. But eventually, Roy Fokker is going to die.
Right. Dum 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 dum.
Yeah, I mean, it happened in the animated series.
Right.
So and that was a pivotal part for Rick Hunter, but which I'm sure eventually he'll die in this too. But it's really interesting, within the first issue where he's going to have my brother arrested.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's
And
a plot twist.
Yeah. Yeah, because up until that page, I was like, well, this is pretty much verbatim from what happened. They're just throwing a little bit here and there, and that's totally different.
Right. So, how many issues in is that?
It's only only up to issue 2 right now.
Okay, so literally just started.
It's literally brand spanking new.
Okay.
So I mean, the first 2, it's only up to issue 2 right now.
Right. Okay. So you hear that, new readers? Easy book to find, easy book to jump on. Right there, issue 2. Got 1 and 2. Go get them.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna now.
What you got, Charlie?
Go ahead.
No, I said, what you got?
Okay. So my next book, I showed it briefly when I was doing the Fourth World Comics picks, and I'm actually holding it up now for the readers. I'm showing the trade paperback of Invincible, Volume 1. And this book is written by a writer who comic book fans are probably a little familiar with, a gentleman by the name of Robert Kirkman.
No, never heard of him.
I know, right? He just did this little thing. This little comic book no one's really knows, Walking Dead. But anyway,
never heard of it.
Yeah. But yeah, so he also writes Invincible, and here's the thing about this book that I love. It starts out, and if you read the first couple issues, you have no idea what you're going to be in for by issue 12. I'll put it that way. It's one of those series that starts out in a completely different place than where it ends up a year and a half later. Basically, long story short, where this series starts is you have a kid by the name of Mark Grayson, who his dad was a longtime superhero named Omni-Man, who basically, I guess the easiest way to describe him is imagine Superman, except he doesn't need the yellow sun. Okay. And I don't think I've ever seen him shoot I-beams, but other than that, and Omni-Man did come from another planet, and he bred with an Earth woman, and Mark Grayson's a son, and it turns out that Mark Grayson's now starting to develop superpowers.
I hate when that happens.
I know, right? Yeah, I know. I know. It's like puberty's hard enough without super strength and flight and all that, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, what happens is the book starts out very cheerful, like almost like a throwback to like books of yesteryear in a way. There's no real angst about it. Like Omni-Man will disappear to do his fights, and then his wife just kind of like ho-hum because she's like that confident that nothing can harm him. And she kind of gets that way about her son too, because since she knows that the son has the same powers now as the dad, so. And they end up early on. You also meet his basically a couple of what would turn out to be his sidekicks. They have kind of like a little Teen Titans kind of thing going, right?
Mm-hmm.
But basically, so volume 1, that's where you're at, and I would say you probably want to pick up the first 3 volumes to really get the full impact of what I'm talking about, because in volume 3 there is a wicked twist that everything you get comfortable with in those first 10 issues just goes completely out the window. And the series that continues afterward is almost nothing like the series that you were reading for the first 2 trade paperbacks.
Okay.
And I kind of don't want to. even though the books have been out for a long time and really anyone with Google can like figure it out, but I kind of don't want to spoil it because I kind of feel like the twist is that cool that I want people to kind of experience it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't reveal the twist, but I will say, yeah, when you see it happen, because I think you get a taste of it in volume 2, but then it really hits you in volume 3, and it's just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I said, it got Invincible Volume 1, Family Matters right here, and I'm just going to hold up for the camera here. Invincible Volume 2, 8 is Enough, which actually introduces their own version of the Justice League. But as I said before, folks, don't get too comfortable. Okay, so I actually see that we're kind of running low on time here, so I think I'm going to wrap this up. Do you have one more book you wanted to talk to us about?
Yeah, one more. Well, I got like 8 more, but I'll pick what I'm currently reading because I just think it's great.
Okay.
It's currently up to issue 11, so you can still get the first 10 issues. They're still be ready, available at your comic book store.
Gotcha.
And this is another nostalgia for me.
All right.
Scooby Apocalypse.
Scooby Apocalypse. Okay, talk to me about that one.
Which basically take your old what you remember of Scooby Doo and Mystery Inc. and throw it out the damn window.
Really?
It's very well done.
Okay.
So, because you're basically looking at, and hence the name Scooby Apocalypse, you're looking at an apocalyptic issue that has come across the entire planet.
Ooh, okay.
That has literally turned people into monsters.
Ah.
And now these people are trying to they're trying to find a cure because
okay.
Hang on, let me get my name straight. Velma is actually a doctor. She's actually a PhD. Which
makes sense. She was always very brilliant. Okay.
Yeah, but she's also partially responsible for what brought this plague on.
Oh boy.
Because she was working for anytime you work for a shadow government institute, bad shit happens. Bad shit happens. Yeah, but and Scooby's actually able to talk because of the experiments that they performed on him.
So you're telling me Velma experimented on Scooby Doo?
Well, not Velma, but the people in that group she worked for.
Okay.
But that's how he's able to talk because of the experiments they performed on him.
Huh.
He was the lack of a better term, the G1 of their experiment.
Okay.
So, that's how he's able to talk. But it's not your typical Saturday morning cartoon in this comic book. Within, I think it was the 3rd issue, Daphne literally right hooks Velma in the mouth.
Huh.
Because of the stuff they found out.
Oh boy.
And, it's an interesting read. And it is published by DC.
Right.
So, it's out there ready available. But like I said, it's not the Scooby Doo we grew up with. If it wasn't for these, bumbling kids and their dog, it's not that anymore.
Right. Huh.
It's definitely a more mature read.
Right. Yeah.
But it's very well done.
Okay. So you said Daphne punches Velma, huh?
Yeah, because they find out that Velma was partly responsible for all the shit that's going on.
Oh, that's pretty dark.
Yeah, well, because that's how they technically all meet.
Okay.
Is Daphne and Fred are actually reporters.
Okay.
And that's how they end up meeting because they go to do a story on this clandestine group, and that's how they all run into each other.
Right. So which begs me two questions. What's Shaggy's role in all this?
Same as always. He's kind of trying to keep everything together.
Okay.
But he's not the, he's not the scared, oh my God, I need to hide in the corner and let me eat some Scooby snacks that he was in the cartoon.
Right. Okay.
Because they're literally running around with machine guns.
Oh crap. Okay.
Oh yeah, and they're shooting things, and things are dying and exploding. And like I said, this is not your Saturday morning cartoon crap anymore, kid.
Got it. Okay, and the last question is Scrappy Doo around?
He's just showing up, and let me tell you, he's not the Scrappy Doo everybody expects him to be. No. Everybody hated him to begin with in the cartoons. You'll really hate him in the comic book.
Right. See, I didn't hate Scrappy
because he has a pet kid.
He has a what?
A pet kid.
Okay.
Yeah. Wrap your mind around that one.
Huh. Interesting.
And that's all I'm going to say about it. Go pick up the comics.
All right. Hey, that's a heck of a teaser, and I'll be honest with you. I think I might look for that one, because that's got me curious.
Yep. Go pick up the comics, because let me tell you something. You hated him in the cartoon, you'll hate him in the comic even more. Got
it. Okay, so... Wow. Okay, you heard that, folks. Scooby Apocalypse. All right, so on that note, I'm going to wrap up the episode. Dave, if you'll just stay on the line with me, but in the meantime, I do want to thank you for for coming on, being willing to be our substitute host, if you will. So thank you so much for making the time.
Gentlemen, anytime. I love the first time. I love this time, and Ray, feel better.
Okay, thank you so much. So guys, there you have it. Yep, like he said, Ray feel better. And in a couple of days, hopefully, we'll have episode 5 out. So until then, guys, keep collecting. See yous.